Good morning. Thank you for staying with us after Mass this morning. Every day at Mass you hear us pray the prayers of the faithful for more vocations to the priesthood and religious life. Actually, we all have a vocation in life. God calls us all to a life of holiness. I've responded to that call by becoming a priest. The majority of you people have responded to that call through living your sacrament of marriage. Some people choose to remain single. And some people God calls in a special way to a life of holiness and a special vocation. 75 years ago, my sister Margaret was called to a special vocation in life. In 1946, on July 6th, Sunday afternoon, when she was only 12 years old, she was playing with me, my brother, and my sisters, and her cousins. And we had a good time that afternoon. The next day, she was sick with a very terrible headache. And then on Tuesday morning, when she woke up and jumped out of bed, she collapsed. She couldn't walk. My parents took her to the doctor, and she was diagnosed with a very rare and unfamiliar disease we had never heard of before. She had polio. She spent the next 20 months at St. Joseph's Hospital in Omaha, 100 miles away from home. A very difficult thing for a 12-year-old girl to do. We can get down once in a while to see her, not very often. And she spent the last 75 years in a wheelchair. We are told that when God calls somebody to a special vocation, He also gives them the special graces necessary to be a priest or in marriage or whatever. And one of the special graces that God has given Margie and a number of other people that I've known who have to live with severe handicaps and disabilities is that of having a very positive attitude about life and embracing the heavy crosses God has given them without complaining or feeling sorry for themselves. Margie certainly has had this attitude. She is always upbeat, she's always very positive. She always looks upon life on the sunny side and never finds fault with other people, but she looks for the good. And she's always enthusiastic about all of us whenever we're going on a vacation or doing things that she is not capable of doing. She finished her education by taking correspondence courses and then lived at home with my mother and dad on the farm, doing all sorts of household chores and baking a lot of cookies for her priest brother who loves cookies, and taking care of my elderly uncle, basically being his caretaker, and then my dad. And then she took care of Mom until Mom was at the age of 94 and could no longer could be cared for at home, and she spent the last 3 years of her life in the nursing home. But Margie was always there ministering to these people and taking care of them. When she moved to town 32 years ago, she built a house there. Everybody came to know Margie because she was the one person that was always there. And so it wasn't uncommon for maybe a husband to drop by and drop off a 5-year-old child and say, Margie, could you watch her for about 2 hours? And her mom would come and pick her up on when she's through with work. Or maybe the school principal would call and say, Margie, we have a student who is ill. Could you take care of her? We bring her over until her parents can drop by to pick her up. Or Margie, can we drop off a Patrick? My cousin will drop by in a couple of hours and pick it up. At the local convenience store, sometimes they were out of eggs, and they would suggest, well, maybe you might stop and see Margie. She might have some. Or a neighbor kid might come over and say, my mother needs a cup of sugar. Do you have any? Every kid in town came to know Margie. After school was out, especially after school was out on Wednesday afternoon when they had PRA classes or CCD classes, as many as 15 or 20 kids might show up at Margie's for cookies or Jell-O or whatever. Some of the neighborhood kids, when they were bored at home, would come and just drop in and see Margie. Her house was their house. They did not bother to knock. They just walked in and made themselves at home. The story I like the most is one Sunday afternoon, one of the neighbor boys came over with a cousin from Omaha, and he walked in the house and said, Margie, this is my cousin from Omaha. I'm going to show her your house. And without saying anything further, they just went and took the tour of the house. When they came back, the kid from Omaha said to Margie, you sure have a lot of God in your house. crucifixes on the wall, pictures of Mary and Joseph or Jesus, sparked many conversations and gave Margie many opportunities to share her faith with these children. She helped many of them with their catechism lessons. She helped a number of Lutheran children preparing for their confirmation interviews. Father Jim Ryberg, the pastor at St. Joseph's for a number of years, couldn't find anybody to teach high school CCD. So he came and asked Margie if she'd be able to do it. And so for that year, every Wednesday night, the high school kids came over to see Margie, and she taught them their CCD classes. One winter during a blizzard, a family couldn't get home to their home, so Margie put them up overnight. Back in 1964, when I was still in the seminary, I introduced Margie to a program through which people could assist missionaries in foreign lands. She received their names and addresses of some priests in India, the Philippines, Dominica, all over the country or world. And there are so many things that we Americans just throw away: used pencils, notebooks, erasers, good reading material, magazines, etc. So Margie would pack these up and send these off to the missions and to various priests. One priest in particular that she became good friends with was Father Anthony Patiera from India. Eventually he became a bishop, and then eventually he was called to be a cardinal. Very few people, I'm sure, in the state of Nebraska have ever been invited by a bishop to come to Rome to receive a red hat. But Margie received a personal invitation from Cardinal or Anthony Cardinal Patiera to come to Rome when he received his cardinal's hat. Obviously, she wasn't able to attend, but it was quite an honor for her to be so invited. In 2006, Margie and two others who were handicapped and disabled persons were honored by the Archdiocese and received the award Open Wide the Doors. This award was given in recognition of service to one's parish and the larger community. In the letter accompanying this award, Archbishop Alvin Curtis wrote, "Margie, you are a wonderful example to the reality that persons with disabilities not only deserve to be helped and supported by the community, but that they enrich, serve, and build up the community by their active participation." At the Jubilee Mass for persons who are disabled, Pope John Paul II prayed, "Lord of life and hope, thanks to you, disability is not the last word on life. Love is the last word." And then Archbishop Curtis said, "Margie, your willingness to serve the Church is testimony to that truth." This award serves as a reminder to the whole community that you are a valuable, irreparable, irreplaceable member of the body of Christ. We need you and your God-given gifts. The Church would be poor without you. Thank you for not burying your talents. Thank you for living your faith. Thank you for being an example of joyful service. And then Margie received a plaque which read, "With the Open Wide Doors Award, in appreciation to you for outstanding service to St. Joseph's Parish and to the community around you." So Margie, we thank you for embracing the heavy cross that Jesus laid upon your shoulder and for carrying it with joy, and in so doing become an inspiration to so many people. And I know there are many people watching on TV who are also handicapped or dealing with disabilities, many people in their old age dealing with all sorts of crosses to bear. I think of one particular friend of mine, Chad Coyne of Clarkston, Nebraska. He died 2 years ago. For the last 30 years of his life, he was completely paralyzed. He couldn't even move a finger. If his arm slipped off the desk, somebody had to put it on for him. And yet, in those 30 years, and I visited him quite often, I never heard him complain about his disability or all that he was going through. He accepted it, and most importantly, he continued to study and to learn. He was the most educated man I've ever known. He had books piled all over the room, none easy reads, theology, philosophy. He converted himself to Catholicism by reading the Church Fathers. He knew history, modern and ancient. He knew things about science, biology, any subject he was interested in, and he wanted to learn. And with a voice-operated computer, he was able to do research and write articles and have them published. Just an incredible inspiration to me. And I visited with him often, especially toward the end, talking about how, when Jesus would call him home, what an incredible experience that would be. He would be leaving his useless, worn-out body behind and suddenly be whole. And because he carried that cross so many years, so faithfully, without complaining, for all eternity, it would be a special jewel in his crown of glory. And he, like St. Paul would say in 2 Corinthians, I consider the sufferings of this life to be nothing compared to the glory God has revealed. And that glory will be for all eternity for that life of suffering that he endured. So to all of you who are carrying crosses and heavy burdens at this life, remember those words of St. Paul, bear that cross faithfully and joyfully as Jesus carried his. And one day, like Paul, you will say, I consider the sufferings of this life to be nothing compared to the glory that God has revealed. Thank you for staying with us and watching. I hope you have a good day.